come to hear Donald Byrd. Donald Byrd got up to play, and a lot of people left because I think the Jackie and Jackie set had just killed everybody. It was like, you didn't want to hear anything after that.
So you asked me, do I have any funny recollections? So we're talking about Jackie. So Jackie would call me and leave great messages on my answering machine. And one of the things, he had this like alter ego, this pseudonym. He would speak in this very faux British accent, and he'd refer to himself as Nigel Poot. Hello, this is Nigel Poot calling for Michael Weiss.
Yeah, there's Jackie.
But those guys, they had such great humor. Like I would ride in the car with Walter Davis, and he'd just turn to me and just start speaking in this gibberish language, like it just like as if he was speaking, German or French.
Yeah.
Yeah, and right, and he caught me off guard. I'm just like, I'm odd to be in the car with him already, so I'm not ready for that. And he'd laugh and laugh.
Oh, there was such laughter there. But Walter Davis,
yeah.
All right, we're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We're in York, Pennsylvania, playing a concert for the Society, Eastern Pennsylvania Friend of Jazz. Okay, it's a large auditorium, and Dizzy Reese was on the thing with us. Dizzy Reese, Walter Davis Jr.
Three horns.
No, just two horns. Dizzy and I, and then there was Walter Davis Jr., Richard Davis on bass.
Oh.
And Winard Harper, young Winard, was on drums. So we played a couple of nights in Washington at One Step Down, and then we went out to the Sunday to do this concert in Pennsylvania. Okay,
Harrisburg, probably.
Harrisburg, York, Harrisburg, and Steve Patton, who recently passed away, wonderful guy. And pardon my nose, it's not what you think, folks. So we're playing this concert, and Walter had one pet peeve. He had a few pet peeves, but one of them was he did not like arco bass. He liked Paul Chambers playing arco bass, but after PC, he didn't want to hear any more arco bass. He really didn't care for it. Okay, Dizzy Reese was having some problems. It was a big hall, and sometimes he couldn't hear us announcing the tunes, and thought he wasn't getting announced to because the microphone's here and he's behind me, and he's having a little hearing problem, so he was yelling at me. So during the whole Sunday concert, it's like, why did you tell me what tune you're playing, for crying out loud? Finally, I had to ask the audience, could you please tell Mr. Reese what the name of our next selection is? And 700 people go, Evidence by Thelonious Monk. And then Walter stands up and says, you hear that, Dizzy? You hear that? So we're doing this. So now, this time, we all have a selection. We're going to choose a request, right? So Richard Davis, he has his selection. He's going to play Blue Bossa. And Walter looks at him like, like, really? Because this is the man, Walter's the guy that transcribed the Kenny Dorham songbook. He knows everything that Katie wrote. And then it's sort of like, well, okay, if that's what you want. And then, of course, Richard, it's his feature. He takes the first solo.
Pulls out the bow.
Pulls out the bow. So now he's playing more and more into it. And now he's starting to take the music out with the bow. And now he gets onto the overtones on the top of the strings. And he's playing these weird sounds. He's like out there. Walter now is up from the piano, and it's a large stage, and he's got his hands over his ears, and he's going, buzz, 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 buzz. And so, we take the tune out. So the next day, as we're waiting for our car to get ready, go take us back to New York, Richard turns to me and he says, rough day for Harry's yesterday, huh? I say, yeah. I said, you handled Walter Davis nicely. He was you didn't get angry when he was going buzz, buzz, buzz on you. And, and he said, you handled Dizzy admirably too. And we said, that's nice. And then Richard said, you missed the best part. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, remember when I was playing my arco and I was way up on it and I was making those like overtone sounds and this and that, and you began your solo with your overtone sounds. So you started playing your double stops and you're like very free. You started out like really free and worked your way back inside. I said, yeah. He said, well, when you were in the middle of your going out, Walter leans over the piano and he says to me, now, see what you've done?
Oh, that's great.
So Jackie, you got close to Jackie, because he was a
Yeah, he had me come up to Hart to teach. He had me
well, this is McLean we're talking about, or Jackie Byard?
Yeah, no, Jackie McLean. Yeah, no,
McLean,
I had a nice relationship with Jackie. He always threatened, he'd say, well, so when Walter died, Jackie called me the next day and he said I had a dream of this. It's like he had a premonition.
Uh-huh.
And he got up and he wrote this tune and he played it for me over the phone and I notated it for him as he played it for me. And that was a song he wrote called Walter Davis Ascending, a beautiful ballad that he wrote the night Walter died. And then soon after I had a trio record date for a steeplechase and I asked Jackie, could I record his tune, which hadn't been recorded yet, and he gave me his blessing to record it.
Oh.
And I also recorded Little Melanie on that date also, but he left a very heartfelt a serious answering machine message, expressing how he said listening to that record almost made him cry.
Oh, beautiful.
He was so touched, but the whole record, not only just those tunes, but he said, we really should start a band. I want to get a band with you and play some of your tunes, and hell, maybe we just go to Europe and do a duo tour. I was like, yeah, of course it never materialized, but just
they put it with Cedar.
Just the fact that he said that to me was very touching.
That is beautiful. I mean, I knew Jackie too, and he's the kind of guy he was. I got to hang around. Actually, we did this Alto Summit in Paris with Walter and him, so I got to, and they did
Magnetic
Terrace.
Magnetic Terrace, right?
Yeah, and I did the next week
with AT.
They did the week with AT. And then the next week, we still kept Pierre Michelot and Walter and me, and they had a French drummer because AT had to go somewhere else. But the week that they played at the Magnetic Terrace with AT, I was in town. I had come a week early because I had a friend in Paris I wanted to see. And Walter and our tour started that week. But the week that Jackie was in town,
right,
Walter, I went down there almost every night and just listened. We had played the Alto Summit together and everything, but they played so well together that, even though they kind of asked me if I wanted to play, but I really felt I should just listen to this. And it turned out to be the last time they got to play together. But my intuition said, don't.
Right.
Going on there.
This is perfect. They got their own chemistry going.
Yeah.
Let them have it. Yeah.
That's right.
I can dig that.
Yeah,
but that's very humble of you, not to kind of seize the opportunity, but to appreciate the larger picture and be willing to sublimate your own aspirations in that regard.
Well, thanks. Well, my fingers were itching.
Yeah, I bet.
But I would, I said, no, this is something that it's a love that I'm fortunate to observe. So, that was, and they had AT there too. So the three of them had this, very long. They were doing this before I was born.
Yeah,
So it was,
that's right.
so even though we were all grown men, but so there was that kind of thing. I had one thing with Jackie too that was very beautiful. I didn't really know Jackie, and then we did this Alto Summit concert with 6 altos, and we didn't all play every tune, but we'd have trios and quartets, and Phil and Jackie, Phil and C sharp. I got C sharp over there. I brought C sharp. I made sure he got on it.
That's great.
And Jackie and I made sure he got a Selmer because he came over with a $45 saxophone that we said this is not going to do it, But Jackie called me aside, and he said I had played Embraceable You, and it had a very nice reception. But I mean, people really dug it. It was my quartet feature, so it was Walter and Percy Heath and Roy Haynes and me.
Whoa.
And
Shit.
I mean, how do you play bad with those guys? You know what I mean? I managed to on one tune, but for the most part, it was pretty good. And the thing is, I finished that, and Jackie says to me, and you know how he had that tough guy thing? That was the beautiful thing about Jackie. He was real street, like he got that almost sneer on his face.
Right.
I got to talk to you. I want to tell you something. And I go, oh no. He knows that I don't get along with Frank Morgan. I'm thinking like that. I'm trying to be nice to everybody because it's the spirit of the horn, spirit of bird.
And then he told you play your ass off.
That's what he said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He said, I'm just going to tell you this once, and I'm never going to say it again. And that really scared me. And then he said that, and he said, but I don't think you might realize that all the time. So whenever you doubt yourself, you remember this conversation, and you remember that I, Jackie Mack, told you that you're a bitch.
Isn't that beautiful?
Isn't that beautiful?
See, I mean, not only getting to the personal contact, not only just playing with people, but getting to know these people and hanging. I mean, when you think now, I can't even relate to. I feel so bad for young players, serious young players coming up in their 20s and 30s. That have almost no opportunity to have that experience, to be in the company of giants. Like the name of Jimmy Heath's book, I Walk with Giants. We walk with giants. Because how they led by example. It's not only what they played, it's how they played, how they led a gig, how they started a song, how they ended a song, the kind of feeling they put into how they played a melody. All these intangibles are so important, and it's self-affirming. It's like, I think when I think of like, the very first records, your first exposure to jazz, how stimulated you are by the emotional intensity of the music that just, it just grabs you right here, and it just shakes you to your core, like this mode of expression that is just this new big open door to you, with like the door opens, it's like this whole world is, this Garden of Eden is on the other side of the door, and then you interact with these people, and you play with these people, and it's self-affirming. It's like Junior Cook. I can't think of there. Maybe I can count on one hand with all these people you mentioned that I played with, who told me what to do or told me what to play. Do this, don't do that. Nobody said shit. And what that meant was, it's like, I want you in my band because I believe in what you do is authentic and works with what I'm doing.
and that I won't have to waste any time explaining things to you.
I don't have to say shit. But they lead by example, and all these, the way, the feeling, basically the feeling of how everybody plays is like, and the fact that you're there and you're in the game, it's very it self-affirms. It's like your core belief, your belief in the spirit of what you're doing. It's affirmed. It's affirmed, and he's like, I know what I'm doing is valid. I don't care if I'm not on a major label or whatever. I've got that stamp of approval from the, you know,
From on high, you know, from the real
on high. It's like,
I mean, you know, when
no one can take that away from me, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my daughter did a stupid thing, not a stupid thing. She auditioned for Canada's Got Talent when she was growing up in Toronto, and she said, "Oh, she just did it on a whim." And you know, she sang, and one of the judges said, "Oh, you know, you just sound like a jazz singer. You're just one of those people singing jazz, this and that." And my daughter is very good, and she knows what she's doing, and she's really talented.
And she said, "Thank you."
She said, she said it was really funny. And he was a black guy, the judge. And she said, "You know what?" I said, "What'd you say?" She said, "You know," I told him, Hank Jones likes what I sing, likes the way I sing. And you don't even probably know who Hank Jones is." and and so it was that kind of thing. You know, it was like once when you had the affirmation, the way we've had it, you know, that from these kind of people that are the people that matter, that it doesn't matter what a jazz critic A or B says about it, you know, or whether you win the downbeat poll or anything, because you got, and what you were saying before, I think I'd like to say, because I was going to kind of finish our conversation on the idea of jazz education, and you know, you said you had gone to Indiana. Was that under David Baker and Indiana University and that kind of thing? Well, you know, David liked to hang. You know, David had, I felt, I knew him a little bit, and I just met him in New York, and we had an afternoon together where we played free jazz with his cello. He came up to my place, he came up to my apartment, and we had a little smoke, and he took out his cello, and we played free jazz for 2 hours, and somewhere there's a tape of it, and it was really good. I mean, it was, I don't know if it was good or not, but it felt good, and you know, but I just knew him as a musician, that he was a musician at heart, even though he was a teacher and education was a real important thing to him. He still seemed to have the spirit. What I mean is the real jazz education is the way you just defined it. You know, being with these people and maybe not being told anything, you know, just little, maybe if nothing. I mean, Junior never told me anything either. You know, I can't think of any time, but I learned a lot. And the same kind of thing. I mean, we just did some shows on Ira Sullivan, and you know, the jazz education. Like, Ira didn't read music hardly at all. He didn't know chord changes to tell anybody or to write out a set of changes. He actually, and you know, he was teaching, but and you know, you ask me, what did you learn? He said, well, he just listened to me, and you know, and then he would say, well, maybe you want to try it like this, and just. But he wouldn't name anything. But the other thing that he would do that was interesting, when I think about the times that Ira did talk to me about anything in the 50 plus years that I knew him, having known him since I was 13, he would tell me occasional things about music. And they were just little tiny hints. Like he said, well, you know, it's got to be in the pocket. And what's this? Oh, gosh. 1 second. Is
that you or me?
That's me. That's my daughter calling from Europe. Give me 1 second, Mike.
Let's pause it.
Pause it, yeah. Emily.
Hey, Pops.
Hey, kiddo. I'm just finishing up with a podcast with my friend Mike Weiss.
Of course. Okay. Well, we're just going to bed today. We came back from Italy, and we've been up since 1:30 in the morning. So it's 10:30 p.m. here. So.
All right. Well, let's talk tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds good.
I called your mother. Did you call her for Mother's Day? You probably should.
I emailed her because she doesn't want me to call her, but I think she's seeming a little bit sane from her response to my email.
She has been. I love you. Give my
Love
love
you
to,
too. Have a good podcast. We'll talk tomorrow. I miss you.
I miss you too. Give my love to John.
I will.
Bye-bye. Yeah, sorry, my daughter's
That's
in
your
Europe.
that's your oldest daughter?
Yeah, she's on tour right now.
That's the one we met in Toronto. She was like, I don't know, 6, 8 years old or something. 10.
She's now 40, and she's a wonderful singer-songwriter. I'll send you some of her stuff, man. Do you like it?
Okay.
And yeah, we did a tribute to Peggy Lee that really came out nice with Cranshaw and Jimmy Wormworth and Ehud Asheri and to Joe Cohn and Saul Rubin alternated on guitar.
Mhm.
And it's really beautiful. Plus, she writes her own tunes, and they're wonderful. But getting back to the idea of jazz education, yeah. So when Ira would tell me something, he told me about there's the pocket, and then there's a deeper pocket of feeling what's called the long meter. And so he explained to me how you feel. So you're feeling that. And then the further one, deeper one, where it's one. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. So you're feeling, and so I remember he told me that, and he told me when you play a ballad, try to paraphrase the melody. And then he told me that was like what Bird was doing, what Coleman was doing on Body and Soul. Then, I was like 15, 16, and I said, oh, that's what they call it. And other than that, I don't remember him ever saying how to do anything. And so when you've been teaching, what I'm saying is that I think what you just mentioned, what we just were talking about, is the real jazz education. Benny
Yeah.
Griffin,
Well, the story, the storytelling element in your solo, your fundamental, point of departure of wanting to play a solo should be to tell a story with your solo. Your motivation for playing a solo should not be, I can play this over G7. That should
right.
not be your motivation for playing a solo.
Well, it can be a little piece of what informs your playing is knowing what's possible on one level, but that.
No, but it's in service to telling a story.
Right, which is like when I tell people that all of that is sort of like this book I wrote of patterns and ideas like that. I say, don't think this is not it, because this is like what they say in Zen, a finger pointing toward the moon. Never mistake that for the moon.
I like what you were saying about what I was saying about feeling the time. So when I met Barry, I had a very close relationship with Barry Harris for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we did 2 piano concerts. We did a lot of stuff together, and we spoke on the phone every week at our pianos for years. And anyway, when I met Barry, I was in school at Indiana, and I went to hear him play in Indianapolis. Is when I met him, and I got a lesson with him. And the thing that I remember was, so I played just one of those things for Barry. And he said, hold it. Where are you tapping your foot? And I said, on 2 and 4. He said, on 2 and 4. If you tap your foot on 2 and 4, then where do you clap your hands? Oh, shit. He said 1 and 3 are down here, 2 and 4 up here. And then I tried to retrain myself to see what it felt like in my body, my physical equilibrium, playing, tapping my foot on 1 and 3, how that made me feel the beat. And that informed, that left a big mark on how you grab the tempo in your hand. How you play, where you play the beat, you have to swing by yourself. So you've got to place every note. It can't just be this amorphous, like you have your beat and you have some vague idea of the tempo in your head or in some other part of your body. It's, this is something different, with the piano. The only connection to our instrument is with our fingers. With your horn, you have not only your fingers, but your embouchure, your articulation makes,
And your breath.
and your breath makes the sound, makes how you articulate with your embouchure where you is where you put the time, and just the idea of not taking nothing for granted, like what is trying to perceive of an ideal execution of a phrase. Like if you could play this as good as you can, what does that mean? What would that be? Going to the small detail of articulation and like how do you perceive it? How do you perceive it is how you would sing it. Because when you sing something, you're unencumbered by the physical aspects of the instrument. It comes straight from your concept, straight out. Now duplicate that on your instrument. Don't just accept the way you play it on your instrument. Have a concept, have an ideal of how you would phrase something, and then execute that.
That's a beautiful.
So that, but that all started from like, once he said, 1 and 3 is down here and 2 and 4, that was kind of the genesis of, let's play confirmation and work on every phrase so that it is good as it could be, that it swings, that it makes a whole audience clap their hands to what you play.
Yeah,
and Barry has this way of grabbing the tempo by the horns, and he can tug on it in different ways by where he puts it. If he sits back, you hear exactly, it's not random. He just, the way he feels the beat, that's something we never even really talked about. Like everything about Barry, what Barry teaches is about melody and harmony. The only thing he ever talked about rhythm was being able to start a phrase on any beat, on any and.
The and.
He would implement his scales and his melodic stuff by being able to start and stop on any beat, on any and, so that you get used to phrasing. And I think the one of the greatest exponents of someone who came through Barry, who can start and end their phrase on any beat, like a rhythm changes, start on any beat of any bar, on any and, can start it and end a phrase in any point in time without getting locked into that, not letting the cadences dictate your phrases.
Mm-hmm.
Like all that marked, where the harmonic structure can lure you into taking your breath. And the guy that is the freest with that is Charles
McPherson.
Oh man.
Yeah, he's very free.
Where he can extend an idea, he can build a phrase, he can let something go and then start something new in the most unsuspecting places. The bar that you never think of starting your new line. Or ending your line, just to have complete freedom of the length of your phrase, the development of the phrase, the commas, the question mark, the syntax, the exclamation points, the capital letter at the beginning, the comma, the phrase, just completely independent of the harmonic rhythm.
Well, Charles is something else. I mean, we've been friends for a long time. When I first sat in with Mingus, and I was 19 years old, I was 18. I was supposed to take his place because the band was going to Europe, and then Mingus canceled the tour because his book was coming out, and he had a chance to do the Dick Cavett show. And so I didn't end up I joined the band a year after that. But, but I remember Charles was so helpful to me. He was like, I was sitting in every night at the Jazz Workshop in Boston, and Charles was saying, you got to give Mingus a little more Johnny Hodges there. He likes that. And and so I had like these little sessions with Charles every night, like helping me with things. And over the last half century, I've talked to him a few times a year, and we start to talk, and we get into it, and have wonderful talks. And I also have to say about him, when I was diagnosed with emphysema, the first message I got when I came back from having been diagnosed, I was sick in Europe, is where I got diagnosed, in Belgium. I had a message on my answering machine from Charles saying, I heard you had some kind of problem medically. Are you okay? And he was the first person that got in touch with me about that. So besides being so brilliant and such a great cat, such a great musician, he's a lovely human being as well.
He's a real thinker, and he has he's such a great articulate conversationalist.
Oh,
he can really get to the crux, and with the right colorful language, and the yin and the yang of the Vasavusa, you can go there.
The syntax and the prosody, syntax and prosody are in the right places. Just like you were talking about, what Barry was talking about with when you play something, it's got to be in the right place, and it's got to feel in a certain way with the right feeling. It's laid back, or it's on top, or it's somewhere, but you're in control of it.
It's not even, he didn't even, that's nothing he said to me. It's what I got from listening to him that inspired me about how he plays. He just grabs the beat by the horns, and like he puts it somewhere. Every note is placed in such a very expressive way. It's like, well, you can, it's not just notes, it's not just pitches, it's phrasing and articulation that's so important.
Well, you know who said something very interesting about that one time when we were talking was Andy Bay. We were having dinner one night in Europe together with a critic who was interviewing both of us about the 70s and all this. And then I got a chance to ask Andy to pull my coat to, like, I was just starting to teach vocalists. I say, well, how do you teach vocalists? What do you're really good at that. Do you have any maxims or things that you like do? And he said, well, in general with teaching, I think what you got to do, and then it should do the rest. But the key to finding, to teaching, is just find out where the person is vague. He says, so whenever somebody's vague, he said, a singer will sing, and then maybe they're going, there is no greater love than what I think. And that pitch was vague. Or that rhythm is vague. Well, did you meet in on the one, or was you
right? Don't half-ass this shit.
He said, so my class, they only allowed one word. They're allowed, if somebody's performing, somebody can holler out vague. He said they can say vague. So I think that's what we're talking about. The idea of like avoiding be spontaneous but never vague.
Right. That's right. Vague.
So I thought that was
the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, like this. And one other thing too that was along those lines, when you talk about articulating, telling a story, and that type of thing. One person I've been fortunate to get next to of that great generation is Sonny Rollins, And a friend of mine was saying, well, what do you talk about with Sonny? I said, well, we talk about just about everything, music, theology, philosophy. But a lot of the time, we just end up telling each other jokes. He said, jokes? You sit with Sonny Rollins and you just tell each other jokes? I said, yeah. He said, he said, because that's what he wants to do. I mean, he likes my jokes. I like his jokes. And plus, I'll tell you one thing. To hear Sonny Rollins tell a joke, you're going to learn more about music than you're going to learn by anything you might ask him about music, in a way. You hear how to tell a story. You hear he has the same kind of idea of structure, of premise.
Right.
He has all of those elements that are there in his best solos are there when Sonny Rollins tells you a joke or tells you a story about something that happened to him in life. It's better. It might be just as good as getting on the bandstand. In fact, it's probably better because you're not as nervous.
Yeah, right.
But that's the kind of thing that, like when you have, I had also the experience of just hanging out with Barry, at the IAJE conventions that they used to have. I never paid admission to go to see exhibits or this and that. I went right to the bar.
Yeah, that's where it's happening.
Table. Barry was always at this little table in the corner. And I just parked myself next to Barry. And then whoever wanted to talk to us would come up. And often they knew Barry. Sometimes they knew both of us. And, you might hit on him for, oh, by the way, I'm teaching, if you ever want me to come up there, I'll do a clinic, But to me, the main event was being able to sit next to Barry and talk about life and music for the day,
I'll tell you a funny story. We used to, Barry was rehearsing his big band stuff for the past few years of his life, revisiting his big band, and he asked me to write an arrangement, which I did. But after the rehearsal, we would often go have sushi at a favorite at Tomoe in the Village, or before going to the 11th Street bar. So one time we're in there having dinner, and sitting right next to us is Julianne Moore.
Right, she used to live in the neighborhood down there. She was my neighbor.
And I recognized her immediately. She's just there at the table next to us with her husband.
Sorry, Mike, give me 1 minute. Let me shut the dog up. Quiet, Layla. That'll do it.
And the struck up a conversation. It was very beautiful, wonderful, very nice, unpretentious, straight ahead. And Barry didn't know who she was. And I said, Barry, this is Julianne Moore. She's a very famous actress, Oscar winner. And, and the first thing he says, oh, really? Oh, you should come to class. And she goes, oh, well, I when is it? She goes, oh, well, I would love to, but I'm going to be in California. I'm shooting a movie at that time, but, she was so gracious. It was very funny.
That's like the Blakey story where, they said how Art was, such an evangelist for jazz that, it's probably not true, but it was the legend that Art walks, he's going to take a shortcut to get to somewhere, and he walks through a cemetery, and then he sees a crowd around a grave, and they're having a sort of a
oh, he said, I'd like to say a few words about jazz.
Right. Does anybody have anything further to say about the deceased? And Art said, in that case, I'd like to say a few words about jazz. That kind of reminded me of that story. But, that was the real, Benny Green was saying too. We were saying what really jazz education is. He says when he sat down and he'd listen to a record with Ray Brown, and just watching, or somebody else like that, when you watch how these cats would just look as they listen to music, just the facial expressions they'd go through, and where they might just put their finger up at a certain good passage, like there it is, check this out, and having those kind of experiences with people, I feel sorry for the generation that's coming out of this academic world without the soul, because that's jazz. Like the song says, jazz ain't nothing but soul.
Yeah, but when you play in that company in front of a paying, listening experienced jazz audience full of fans. I mean, like, what's a better experience than playing the Left Bank Jazz Society with a Johnny Griffin or with a band you're working in, and 300 people are there who've heard everybody cheering you on while you're playing your solo. When you've got to deliver, you really got to present a story. You're not just playing in the university practice room, or just like, this is it right here. This is like main event, Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, that's right.
Jazz.
Yeah, that's right. One time I was in France, my very first trip to Europe, and I'm getting my horn out. The band that preceded us was Benny Carter and Earl Warren, a 2-alto group.
Whoa.
And I'm about to go on bandstand with Chet and Zoot, this George Wein All-Star kind of thing at the Grand Parade de Jazz in Nice.
Right, in Nice.
And Benny Carter walks over to me. I'd never met Benny before. He sees I'm taking out an alto. He says, "Oh, alto player." And then he starts asking me, he said, "Oh, I'm here with Chet." He says, "Oh, I've known Chet since he was a young man." Blah, blah, blah. He says, "Well, I was going to leave." He said, "But I'm going to stay and listen to you." And I was like, wow, Benny Carter is going to stay to listen to me. And I'm like, what you're saying, that's like an illustration of that type of thing, that here you are, and not only is our 3,000 people going to hear, or whatever, 1,000 people, 500, however many were out there, but I got Benny Carter in the audience, and I've got to play for him,
Man, when I would play at Bradley's trio, you look down, the whole bar is a who's who of jazz. I mean, at the same time, there's Art Blakey, Kenny Barron, Ronnie Matthews, Cecil Taylor, Clifford Jordan, right down the line, Phyllis Diller.
Yeah, it was like.
So I'll tell you a funny story. I played. I was playing.
Better than them. Sorry.
I had this arrangement of "I'll Remember April" that I played as a ballad, or very slow. And I finished the set. I got up, and Dorothy Donegan is sitting at the table, and she says, "Come here, young man. I'd like you to sit next to me." She's, I don't know, 70, 75 or something at that point.
Just say who Dorothy Donegan was, because a lot of people don't know what a monster this woman was. After Art Tatum, she may have had as much technique as anybody'd ever hear. Yeah. And she played. If you don't know her, check her out. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Well, you might have to bleep this out. This is a little provocative story here. Cool. So I sat next to her, and she said, "Young man," and she put her hand on my knee, and she said, "That I'll remember April, baby." And while she's saying this, she's kind of massaging my leg, and she's slowly inching it up my thigh, squeezing, and she's going up my thigh, and she says, "Baby, that I'll remember April. Oh, you were stroking it." Like this old lady. Like, oh my God.
That's when you were stroking it. And she had to imagine Dorothy, she had this wild hair too.
Yeah.
Her hair just came out, like, as I recall, she had this, almost uncontrolled, it looks like a bird's nest. Her hair, I don't know if it was a wig or what it was, but she was a very wild looking lady.
Speaking of altos, I did a concert. I did a Jack Kleinsinger concert, and this was a perfect pairing that I've never seen before or since. I played with Lou Donaldson and Phil Woods, 2 altos.
That should have happened. Yeah.
It was perfect. We played Klacto Wiesenstein.
Yeah. Yeah. And I played with Lou on, I think it was his 90, maybe it was 5 or 6 years ago, at that little club on Murray Street that George ran for a while. Was it 75?
Oh, 75. He had his birthday parties there, a couple.
Right, and I was there for one of his birthdays. And we both played Birds Now's the Time solo together.
Oh, yeah.
First one.
See, Lou played. I never heard Lou not play perfect. He may have played a lot of the little quotes and stuff in his solo. He kept in his solo, but we did a week at the Vanguard with piano. You know, when he started working there again regularly, he was using Lonnie.
Right.
But we did a week with piano quartet with Kenny Washington and David Wong, and Lou just he played different repertoire. He played more stuff than his usual, and he played long. He really was opening up. But Lou is, I have to say, was probably the most consistent horn player. Just tone, intonation, sound, execution, just, you know, maybe not the most spontaneous, but so what? It was just like he kept his level just high the whole time.
You know, I heard a beautiful 2-alto concert too, which I guess is recorded because that's I heard it. I don't know if it's a record, but it was Charles McPherson and Lou Donaldson doing a tribute to Bird together.
Oh,
and this was wonderful. I really remember that was that.
Wow.
I want to ask Charles about that.
Speaking of Charles, here's something you should check out. So I uploaded, I recorded us. We played a number of times at the Birdland on Broadway and 104th Street in 91, around that
Mark
time.
Morganelli had it, right?
No, Birdland.
Oh, Birdland, sorry.
And we played quartet up there with Leroy Williams. And the recording came out really great. I uploaded the song Is You, but there's Countdown, and he plays Countdown like something like Bird would have played on Countdown, like singing, just nailing all the changes, of course, fast, but just this lyrical dee dee da doo dee da, just while he's going right through like it's nothing.
Wow.
He's playing over Countdown like he's playing on rhythm changes or something. It's really something, because there isn't anything that exists like that on record or that anybody's heard before. I don't think. It's not babadiddy abadiddy abadiddy abadiddy.
Right. Yeah. Well,
no. It's linear. It's really something.
I would like to. I mean, that's how I've tried to approach those.
Just YouTube Charles McPherson Countdown and it'll come up. It's really
on there. Wow.
I uploaded it.
Did you know Al Daly?
Well, very briefly, one of my first visits to New York, I heard Albert playing in a club. I don't remember with who, but I asked him for a lesson. And he said he'd give me a lesson. And I was staying at a friend's loft on Center Street near Canal. And he came over, and this was probably 1978, 79, 80, somewhere around there, $50. And so I played for him. And the one thing I remember that he said to me was, it's like, you got no left hand. He said, you have to lead with your left, like a boxing metaphor, which now, I mean, Barry is plant.
Right.
Plant with your left and solo off.
Harvest with the right.
Put your weight down on the left and bounce, come off of your left. Your left hand is basically just saying it's just kind of flailing. You're not playing your left hand with any intent.
Yeah.
Rhythmic intent, precision. Like, to me, Cedar is the man. Cedar and Barry, the way they comfort their left hand is like a rock. When it comes down, it's all in the right place, and it means something. There's like Bud Powell. There's a real rhythmic yin and yang that has to be there, a rhythmic balance between the left and the right hand. That's intentional. So that was very useful information. Then he said, I think we should do another lesson while you're in town. And I said, well, I can't afford it. I don't have the budget. He says, oh, don't worry about it. And I said, really? And I'm like 20. And I say, are you sure? He says, nah, don't worry about it. And I'm thinking I'm stupid. I'm thinking, don't worry about it. That means he's going to give me a lesson for free. He's not going to charge me for the second lesson. He's telling me not to worry about it. So yeah, the second lesson, and he said, "Where's my money?" But I thought you said not to worry about it. He said, "What? You better give me my money right now."
Oh.
I was so naive, you know.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, yeah.
Man, I thought he was going to kill me.
Oh, that's funny. That's not funny, but that's so Albert Daly. But one part I say, I said, boy, now that's kind of unusual, but Albert was unpredictable, but then that's so. I guess you found it.
Oh yeah, I came up with it right quick.
That's yeah. See,
I mean, I wish I got to know him better, and to I was just so intimidated,
Yeah, we'll see how many funny stories you got. I guess I shouldn't have asked it so right offhand. It's hard to think, but once you start talking about these cats, you know what I mean. Then all the funny stories.
Jackie had me up to do master classes at Hart quite a bit, and I taught piano there too one year. But all the Wayne Escoffrey, Jimmy Green, Mike Drew, those were all kids. They were all in the class. They're all sitting way in the back, and I'm at the piano, real serious, saying, "Listen, you guys, you're gonna have to be able to learn tunes on the bandstand. You're gonna have to know how to hear a song and be able to hear the changes and know and figure it out in the first chorus." I said, "Okay, I'm gonna test you. I'm going to play a progression and you tell me what the chords are. I'll give you the first chord, C minor, ba. And I'm playing the changes to How Deep Is the Ocean. I go, nobody's saying nothing. I said, like, okay, here's the first chord, da, 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 da. What's that? Hardly nobody's saying anything. I go through the whole chorus. I said, is anybody familiar with that tune? No, nothing. I said, that's called How Deep Is the Ocean. I said, Jackie, you recorded that, right? And Jackie looked and he said, is this pale look over his face? I said, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's like, it's all a blur.
Yeah, well, that's it's possible when you've got a great body of work, and also sometimes the condition you might have been in when you made some of these records too, was always.
Oh yeah, I love that dialogue on A Long Drink of the Blues.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember that record. Yeah.
Well, Rudy Van Gelder kept the tapes roll. Yeah, he played tenor, but Rudy left the tape rolling through this 3-minute studio dialogue with Gilly Coggins and Louis Hayes and Paul Chambers and Jackie and
Donald Byrd.
No. Webster Young, maybe. Something like that. Yeah. Maybe, but they're having an argument about how to start the song. And he said, and he's getting all frustrated. Man, I got to tell you when to come in, and I got to tell you when to come in. And then here's what, let's just make the record. Let's just make the, and it's just drop dead hilarious. And there's another one that was never released. I heard it before. It was, I think, the Jackie's Bag recording, and Jackie does a Walter Brennan imitation. Is it? I mean, it's just great, hilarious. I don't know whatever happened to that. where that exists, but I know I heard it before.
Like the real McCoys, Walter Brennan,
Yeah,
the hillbilly Walter Brennan. Yeah,
yeah.
that's funny. No, I got to hear that. I remember A Long Drink of the Blues, listening to it, but like way back when I was 16 years old when I got the record.
Well, put up the very beginning of that first track. There's this great dialogue, very funny.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, man, and we could go on more and more. We must have to do this again. We will do this again at some point. But it's been a real pleasure having the great Michael Weiss with us today, and always
sitting with the great Bob Mover. So feelings mutual. Were you on a gig? This drummer who used to play with Chet. He sent me a cassette. I sat in with Chet at Lush Life in the first couple of years I was in New York, and I think Leo, I think his name was Art Frank.
Art Frank, yeah.
Or Leo Mitchell was playing. Dennis, would you have been playing with Chet then?
No, I had gone to Canada at that point and had my
early 80s.
Early 80s, I was in. By the time Lush Life opened, I had gone to Canada. I remember that because Blaze opened it, I think, who used to have Sweet Basil.
Right.
Yeah, he was one of the people. I think he and Steve Getz might have had something to do with it together.
Right.
I heard about it, but I was already out of town. That was around 1982, 83.
Right.
And my daughter Emily was born right then. But no, I actually was with Chet in 1980. Even 81, I went to Europe with him. 80, I was the last time I was with him in Europe. But no, I wasn't on that gig. But
okay.
But I knew that band, and Art Frank has some stuff with me with Chet, but way from the 70s.
Okay.
But anyway, man, it was a real pleasure, and I hope everybody will go and check out anything you can by Michael Weiss.
I got a recent trio record out called Homage on Cellar Live.
Oh yeah.
That just came out a few months ago.
I just had one come out on Cellar Reel to Reel series. You can see it behind me there.
Yeah.
Concert that Walter Davis Jr. and I did.
Oh, great.
A duo in Salerno. We recorded it, I think, in 88, maybe 89, and finally it came out. Corey Weeds, God bless him, put it out after how many years now? Let's see, 88, 98, 2008, 2018. 36 years later. So, it was funny too. There was a review of it, and it even said they took it away now. On the internet, they could say something, and then they take it out, and it's out even of things that you sent people. So it's no longer there. But the original review of this from somebody in Chicago said, "Mover, who left us too soon, is in such a brilliant mood, blah, blah, blah." And we had to write them and explain to them that I had not, in fact, left us too soon and was still here. But
all too soon.
All too soon. Walter Davis Jr. left us all too soon.
Yeah, that's for sure.
He used to, he was a karate, a black belt and everything, and he had been a bodyguard for Elijah Muhammad, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know he was he had wore many different hats, but I didn't know that was one of them.
That was one of them, and Blakey Buhana used to like to tell the story, and he would kind of augment it sometimes, that they were out in California and some festival, and it was Walter and Wayne Shorter and I think Lee Morgan, and a motorcycle gang came and tried to break up the concert. They came and invaded the festival thing and venue, and he said Wayne was behind the piano holding, clutching his horn, and he said Humphrey came out and he went, and Blakey would do the whole imitation. He'd go boom, boom, bang, bang, bang. Next thing you knew, 5 Hell's Angels were laid out on the stage because he kicked their asses. And he could do that. What he liked to do with me is he'd go like this.
Like the Three Stooges.
Yeah. but he would stop his hand literally an inch from my eyes.
Yeah, that's
And he stopped every time.
a little tricky. We became friends in 89, 80, 90, not long before he died. And his ex-girlfriend, Ronnie, did you know Ronnie?
I knew Ronnie well.
Jennifer,
He
she
used to
had
call
this,
her my queen.
yeah, she's great. And so I met Walter through Kenny Karp. And his girlfriend and Ronnie, they had a beautiful restaurant on Cornelia Street called Sabor,
Oh,
Cuban restaurant. And
yeah.
and Walter and I would eat there sometimes. And we at this time he was living in Brooklyn. He was in this house.
Right. And did he have the twins yet? With
Yeah, but he was living with this other woman, and
living Ronnie's friend. Yeah.
she had this fancy car called a Sterling. It was like a Rolls Royce or something, or a Bentley. And we went in New Year's Eve, and we were at this restaurant. And on the way back, it was pouring, raining, just like a monsoon. And we were driving down Canal Street, just about ready to go over the bridge. And he hit a pothole, and he blew out a tire. And it's pouring out. I mean, just like torrential downpour. And this car, it's like we didn't know how to change the tire. It's like, how do you even get the hubcap off of this thing? And we're just completely drenched. And he had to abandon the car, and we couldn't get a cab because no cabs would stop on New Year's Eve.
Oh, no.
Eventually we got a cab, but it was quite an experience.
It was Walter. He used to walk down through the village when he was with Ronnie, because they lived on Hudson Street and I lived on Leroy Street. So he kind of lived directly behind me, one street behind. And, you'd see Walter walking in the village a lot. And he wore these long robes that he made himself, because he was a tailor and he made a lot of his own clothes. And he and Ronnie, who we would always introduce to people, have you met my queen? And he had this large dog. And Walter was pretty tall. Walter was 6 feet something.
Was he?
Well, almost. He was right around 6 feet. I think, I know that he's taller than me, which is not too much. I'm 5'8" or something. But he had this huge dog. The dog was as tall as me, just about. And the dog's name was Ego.
Ego?
Ego. So he could tell people he had a huge ego. A large ego. That was his ego. And anyway, reminiscing on all these wonderful things and these
we can go on and on.
great people we knew. And it's been fun to go back there, and I hope we get a chance to play some more too, Michael.
That would be great. I would love it.
I got a Kawhi upright over here that's pretty good. I don't go out very often because of my physical limitations. The doctor doesn't want me exposing myself to germs, but if you don't have, you got your shots,
Yeah.
Come on, we'll do a home recording if you don't mind an upright. It's a good one.
I don't mind an upright. That's all I play these days.
Yeah.
Just about. No. But sure.
All right, I'll call you. We'll talk about it.
Sounds great. Well, thanks again for having me on your show. And I hope we get a lot of people to listen and reminisce with us.
Yeah, well, we've got more and more followers. So that's I think, and what you said, I think this has been a very interesting conversation. So anyway, God bless you, man, and thank you for being with us. We'd like to thank everybody for having the great Michael Weiss, as I said earlier, with us today. And catch us next week for another episode. I don't know, do you call these episodes?
Sure.
Another episode of On the Real Side. We'd also like to thank our producer, Jesse Kaiser, and we'll see you soon. So thank you very much. Good night, Mike. Good night, Jesse.
Ciao.
Ciao. God bless you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.